The Timekeeper. Have you ever heard a clock ticking when there's no clock in the room? Some say it's your heartbeat. Some say it's in your head. But in the town where I grew up, we believed it was something else. On stormy nights, if you walked down to the harbor, past the rusted lampposts and the gulls crying in the dark, you could see a faint light in the window of a forgotten shop. A sign above the door swayed in the wind. Erasmus and Company, Watchmaker. And if you were foolish enough to step inside, you might just find that the ticking you hear isn't counting hours. It's counting the moments you have left. The town was small, just a scattering of houses along the cliffside. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew the stories. Children were warned not to go near the watchmaker's shop, not because he was dangerous, but because sometimes people went inside and didn't come back the same. The shop sat at the very end of Glass Wharf, a narrow cobblestone lane that smelled of salt and seaweed. The windows always dusty, the wood warped from years of salt air. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of brass and oil. Hundreds of clocks lined the shelves, all ticking, but never in sync. And behind the counter, Erasmus, thin, pale, hands that never shook, eyes that never blinked for long, a voice that made you feel like you were speaking to someone who'd been alive far, far too long. The first story. The rumors were always the same. He could fix anything. A broken clock, a shattered heirloom, and, if the whispers were true, even a broken life. I first heard about him when I was 14. Her name was Clara. She lost her son in a storm. A sudden squall took his small fishing boat before anyone could reach him. They found the boat days later, but not the boy. One rainy night, Clara went into the shop. People saw her leave an hour later, pale, trembling, clutching something wrapped in cloth. The next morning, her son was alive, walking the docks. But when neighbors mentioned his name, Clara just stared at them. She didn't know who they were talking about. She didn't remember she had a son. She didn't even recognize him. That's when the town understood. Erasmus could turn back the clock, but the cost was always something you weren't ready to lose. The rules. No one knew how many had gone to him, but there were rules. 1, you could only go to him once. 2, you had to offer something of equal weight to what you were asking for. 3, you could never ask for more time than you'd already lived. A fisherman once told me his story. He'd lost his leg in an accident. He asked Erasmus to go back, to stop that day from ever happening. Erasmus agreed. The next morning, his leg was whole, but every photograph in his home was missing his wife. She had never been part of his life, and he had no memory of loving her. Time, it seemed, was like the sea. You could take from it, but the tide always took something back. The origin. I didn't believe it all until I heard the oldest story, the one about Erasmus himself. Before the shop, before the town knew his name, he had been a sailor and an inventor, obsessed with measuring time, perfecting navigation, so no ship would ever be lost at sea again. On one voyage, his ship hit a storm. His wife, who had been with him, was swept overboard. He spent years trying to undo that moment. They say he built a clock unlike any other. No hands, no numbers, a clock that wound the threads of time itself. When he used it, the storm passed. His wife stood on the deck, alive. But when she looked at him, she didn't know who he was. Time had given her life back, but stolen her love for him. In grief, he tried again, and again, Each time something else vanished, until the final time when the clock took his ability to age. Cursed with endless years, he now winds the fates of others, maybe hoping one day to make the trade that gives him back what he lost. My turn. I never thought I'd see him, but last winter I walked into the shop. I had my reasons, a mistake I'd made that cost me someone I loved. I told myself I just wanted to see if the stories were true. But the moment I stepped inside and heard the ticking, I knew I had already made my choice. He looked at me like a doctor looks at a dying patient. I told him what I wanted. He listened. Then slowly he asked, "And what will you give me in return?" I hesitated. He didn't. He slid open the drawer. Inside, the clock without hands. It began to tick. In that sound, I heard everything I wanted back, and everything I wanted gone. I reached out, and I stopped, because I realized I didn't know what part of myself I was willing to lose. The ending. I left the shop. Behind me, the ticking faded. When I turned back, the door was gone, just an empty wall of weathered brick. Some nights, when the wind is just right, I swear I hear it again, faint, deliberate, like the turning of gears far below the world. And I wonder how many people have made the trade, how many walk among us, living days they stole back, but missing something they can't name. And I wonder if the next time I hear that ticking, I'll have the strength to walk away again.